welcome to Voices from the Village. I'm Steve Pleich, and I'll be your host. We're really excited tonight. This is our first Voices back in our new studios, which are on 325 Soquel Avenue here in Santa Cruz. And after 16 years downtown with CTV, we're really happy to be back broadcasting again. I'd like to take a moment just to mention the passing of our good friend Louis LaFortune. Louis passed on March 13th. And he is missed from the Voices family. My co-host Sandino Gomez and I say that we can always sit in Louis' seat, but we really can't fill it up the way that he did. So Louis, we certainly miss you, and we're thinking about you. But as Louis himself would say, the show must go on. So this evening we're really happy to bring you a show and a program about one of the terrific cultural events at downtown and around the county and in Monterey County, in fact. It's been going on for many years, a Reework Film Festival. I'm happy to have Jeffrey Smedberg with me. Jeffrey, welcome.
Well, thank you for having us.
And Pauline Seals, welcome to you, Pauline. Nice to have you here. Jeffrey, of course, you've been here in the past, and Pauline, a first-time guest, so welcome. Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about Reework, and how it got started, how long it's been showing these wonderful films, and kind of your involvement with it.
Right. Well, thank you for having us back, and especially to inaugurate your new studio.
Yeah, yes, indeed.
This is going to be the 15th season of the Reework Labor Film Festival. And I always think sometimes people shorten the name, and the first word they drop is labor, and to me that's the most significant word in the whole title.
And certainly with your background in labor, that's entirely appropriate.
Well, the background of the festival. It began in 2002, myself and a couple of other people sitting around in the Union Hall thinking, you know, our union members, they don't know the history. They don't know why we have the weekend. They don't know why we have the 8-hour day. They don't know the struggles that working people went through for well over 100 years to fight for these rights of workers, health and safety on the job. You know, this didn't just happen. This happened. Of course not. It occurred because people fought and struggled for it over decades and decades, and now it's come to be so commonplace that people think it's just part of the natural scenery. And what we know today is that the union movement is gotten smaller and it's not as strong, and the union movement is really the strongest advocate or most organized and advocate for all working people, raising the issues that affect all working people. And you know, these gains that we've had, you know, 8-hour day, a lot of people now have to work 2 jobs to make ends meet. And so the 8-hour day went out the window. You know, we did get some retirement security and got Social Security enacted. That was basically the labor movement that did that in the 30s. And nowadays, there's a big political movement to, let's get rid of Social Security. So it's not a given that these things are going to be with us. And if we forget our history, you know, we may lose all these things. And so we thought, well, how are we going to teach our own members our own history? Well, why don't we show a couple of movies? And it just
and
grew
so
from
you
there.
did.
And we did, right.
Well, thank you for that retrospective. It's entirely appropriate around the Reework Labor Film Festival, you know, to keep some historical perspective again about, you know, how much struggle there's been. Pauline Seals, welcome to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we start looking at some of the trailers and the films. Let your audience know a little bit about you.
Well, I was a physics teacher at PCS, Pacific Collegiate School, for 6 years, and I did teach physics altogether for about 20 years. Before that, I was a Silicon Valley engineer. And in my last few years of teaching, I taught advanced environmental science, and that really got me into the environmental stuff. So that then when I retired, I finally had time to get involved in activism.
And you are working actively with 350.org, are you?
350 org locally has amalgamated with some other people, and so we now call ourselves Santa Cruz Climate Action Network.
Yeah, that's right. In fact, I've been to a couple of your very successful events in March you've had downtown and around town. Wonderful. So thank you for all that work. As this is broadcast, the film festival will have been going on for a week or so, and you will have already shown several wonderful films, and I hope that it's been well attended as it is every year. But let's look at a first trailer here, and we can talk about that. This is a trailer about Sisters, which is, Jeffrey, help me out when Sisters will be screened?
Yeah, Sisters in the Brotherhood is going to be screened on Wednesday, April 27th.
Great, okay. That's perfect for us because this is going to be broadcast for the first time on the 26th, so people will be able to see that, and we'll get a little awareness out in the community. Let's see that trailer for Sisters in the Brotherhood.
Okay.
John, can you tell me that's going up or down for me? The sound?
It's way down.
Okay, good. Thank you. That's just correct.
I love.
So that's it. Okay, let me
Yeah.
just read from these wonderful, you'll see these all around town, the Reework May Day Labor Film Festival brochures, just terrific professional looking advertisements for this. But let me read a little bit about this. This is Sisters in the Brotherhood, a realistic view of what it's like to be a woman carpenter. Women in the trade talk honestly about the challenges as well as the pride they feel from their work. The film title refers to the official women's group of the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. So, Jeffrey, tell us a little bit about this film.
Okay, well, this is very much a labor film about women who are union members in the Carpenters Union, and gives a perspective of women who have come into this trade, which used to be entirely dominated by men, and still is primarily men, but there's now has a significant number of women in it. And the way the union in the building trades works is they have apprenticeship programs, and they get people who are interested in doing that kind of work, and they have several years of teaching. Someone starts as an apprentice, and then after they go through all the training program and plenty of on-the-job training, they become journeyman carpenters in this case. And the reason why we're showing it on Wednesday, April 27th, a key factor in the apprenticeship training that is shown in the film, actually this is not just for women, but for any apprentice, is they teach safety. Oh. Safety is paramount. Now, I mentioned before that one of the things that we expect at work when we go to work is that we get to work in safe workplaces. And the main reason why we can expect that is because we have government agencies, OSHA, Occupation Health and Safety, and we also have Cal OSHA, the state's mirror of that. Unfortunately, with cutbacks, there are very few inspectors. But,
Interesting.
But the union takes that on and teaches all of its members to be very safe on the job. And the reason why we're showing it on this evening of the 27th.
And mention where it's going to be shown, of course.
Oh yes, it's going to be at the Live Oak Grange.
Great. Okay. Wonderful
Grange
venue
Hall.
for that.
Right. We're also showing it with another film called The Cost of Construction. And on this evening, we're really memorializing Workers' Memorial Day. We're commemorating Workers' Memorial Day, which is recognized each year in memory of those people who have...
And what day is that?
Well, normally Workers' Memorial Day is the 28th of April,
Right.
but because of scheduling conflicts, we have to do our commemoration a day early.
Well,
but
as long as you're commemorating, and that's
Right.
the important thing.
so it's a commemoration
Right.
in memory of the worker and people who've
Wonderful.
been injured and killed on the
Oh,
job.
absolutely, yeah.
And so this Sisters in the Brotherhood really touches on safety on the job, and the other film talks about some cases of lax safety standards in the construction industry and some unfortunate consequences of that.
Yeah, you have any rough idea about the percentage of women who are union carpenters?
No, I don't.
Yeah, but it certainly is increasing.
It
because
is
of the-
increasing,
yeah.
and locally, one of the speakers is going to be a field representative from the Carpenters Union locally, which is Carpenters Local 505, and that local union, just this past year, elected a woman carpenter as their
Oh, is that
local
right?
president.
Okay. Well, I think it's notable that when people think about the construction trades, I think the last thing they think about is the safety of the people who are working the trades. And that's something that everyone should be concerned about, because that's why OSHA was formed. That's why Cal OSHA does the job that it does, to really safeguard the protection of the people who are building things for us.
Right.
And that's important. You have any views on this, Pauline? I don't want to leave you out of the conversation, although you will certainly have much more to say about a couple of other films here. But just as an overview about women in the construction trades.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Many, many years ago, I was one of almost no women engineers in the silicon
Interesting.
chip
Yeah.
business. And it was quite a struggle back then.
I'll be darned.
And I'm very happy to see that women have been accepted into the union. Was that a struggle for them?
Oh, yes. Actually, the women getting involved in the trade union movement probably really, well, I would say the beginning of that was in the early, maybe 100 years ago, when the IWW, the Wobblies, the Industrial Workers of the World, were organizing, and that was a union that did not make distinctions based on race or gender, and they would organize any working
Interesting.
people.
Yeah.
And through the 30s, the union organizers who were really pushing for getting rid of the color bar and the gender bar tend to be the most radical unionists, and they were often the socialists and the communists.
Certainly the perception and the visual has always been historically in the United States of a man working on a construction site.
Right.
And I think that really is changing with women having access to all the trades and professions, and the more that happens, the more access they have, I think, the better off we are as a society. I think let's go to another film here. This is going to be How to Let Go of the World. We're very excited about this because this is hosted by the United Nations Association, of which I serve as a board member, but we're going to have as our speaker John Laird, who's the California Secretary of Natural Resources and a Santa Cruz native for years and years and years, former city council member, former mayor. So we're very, very excited to have John there and have this film screened at the Del Mar. So let's watch that trailer, and then we can talk about How to Let Go of the World. Excellent film.
Can a person stop a wave? Could you stand on the shore and stop a wave from crashing? What are the things that climate change can't destroy? What are those parts of us that are so deep that no storm can take them away?
No.
Okay, this is very exciting. Of course, How to Let Go of the World, in the subtitle, and Love All Things, Climate Can't Change. This, from the brochure, is by the Oscar-nominated director of Gaslands, Josh Fox, and it's a full-length, it's a 125-minute film, so it's a full-length film.
Right.
And certainly John will be there speaking, and I'm sure maybe folks there are fielding some questions. But tell us about this. It's a very, very exciting screening.
Right. We're very excited to have this film in our program, brand new film, and of course Josh Fox is known for other environmental films.
Gasland was fantastic.
Yeah. Right, and he does it from a very personal narrative style, and travels all around the world. And I know, Pauline, you've been able to look at some of the film too.
Well, apart from the trailer, I was able to watch the Amy Goodman, Democracy Now! Segment where she had him on the show, and they showed a section where these people from a South Sea island that is being flooded by rising sea level get into these dugout canoes and go to face this huge oil tanker. And this is happening in the coal port of Newcastle in Australia.
My goodness.
Where they are exporting vast amounts of coal to China, which is also poisoning the air in China, etc., etc. All kinds of bad things about that, apart from the sea level rising. And these people in these flimsy canoes, and well, they're small.
Yeah.
I'm not going to say they're flimsy, but
they're stout.
They're very small. And a few Australian activists in kayaks. These people are all trying to blockade this monster, I don't know, 20 stories high.
If you've ever seen one of those, immense. Yeah,
I mean, it's just absolutely huge, and they're all in the water there. And they have this chant, which is, "We are not drowning, we are fighting." Did I remember that right? You've seen the whole movie. And the whole thing really grabbed me, and I'm not super emotional with movies. You know, there's some people that will cry at practically
we can
every
see that.
but this really got me, and so
of course.
And I listened to some more talk with Josh Fox and Amy, and Josh's abbreviation was "Let Go and Love."
Okay.
So in the abbreviation, he wants the love part. That's what I got out
My goodness.
Right, right.
and that's important.
So the film starts out with him traveling around the world and looking at some places and some conditions where things are just disastrous. And
Already.
Right, already. And predictions of things getting much worse, and how species are going to die, and whole populations in low-lying areas are going to be displaced. And he gets to this point personally where he feels totally distressed and basically feels immobilized just by being so depressed about the conditions. And then he tries to find some hope in there, and then the rest of the movie are cases where people have figured out ways to face the issues and deal with the issues. Maybe not lower the sea level, but ways that basically celebrating the power of the human spirit to survive and grow and be creative in the face of whatever the situation is.
And I think it's entirely appropriate and very timely, really, for Santa Cruz. Here we have a climate action plan that's developed by the city. You may have heard about the Pope's encyclical about climate change. There's all this discussion and the great work that the formerly 350.org, but now here in this area, the Santa Cruz Climate Action Network, have I got that right?
Yeah.
Tell us about their work, because I think that I have been, as we were talking before the show, to a couple of different marches and events that the Climate Action Network has put on around climate change, the importance of awareness about that. But tell us something about your work with them and their work, because I think it really is something that really lends itself to a fuller explanation of kind of what we'll see on Thursday the 28th with Josh Fox's film.
Well, I'd actually like to start with, I'll talk about this shit later, I'd actually start with where I went today,
Okay.
which was to Monterey, actually Salinas, Monterey County, to get signatures to get a ban fracking
Oh, okay.
on the ballot. And some of the team that are working there are the same people that successfully banned fracking in San Benito a couple of
They're
years
wonderful
ago.
work. Aromas cares for the environment, and those folks down there, terrific work,
and
no question.
I had never seen democracy in action like that before. And they were outspent 14-1 by big oil. Now, some of what's happening now in Monterey as we go around collecting signatures, some of the people will say, oh yeah, I've heard those lies on the ads, I'm not buying it, let me sign. Now, that's not everybody,
Yeah.
but it's an encouraging percentage. And so, so that's looking good. So, and that sort of ties in exactly to Josh Fox, because Gasland was all about fracking.
Absolutely, and in fact, I'll interrupt you for just a second. When we did a show, and a couple of shows, in fact, here on chemical fracturing or fracking, and we played clips from Gasland, and it was extremely powerful, to see that and watch that. But please continue.
So that's one of the things we've been doing recently,
Right.
is helping them. So there's been people going down every weekend to take part in the signature gathering, which will go through next weekend, and then there'll be a lull for the summer, because they were at 11,000 as of yesterday. I
And they need to get to what number?
Well, they
I think
officially,
I think they're aiming for double
Right.
what's required on
Okay.
this ballot, and so I think they're
Which
almost
is
so
really
they're on
wise,
track,
yeah.
because they legally they need 7,000 something,
Right.
and they're aiming for 14,000.
And just as an aside, we have gathered signatures here, most notably for the desal plant back in the day, when 2 or 3 years ago, to give the people in Santa Cruz the right to vote before the construction of a desal plant. And we found that in most petitions or initiatives, that 1 out of 3 signatures is invalidated for some reason. The person's moved, they're not in the area, they just sign it wrong, something like that. So that's really the rule of thumb. Anyway,
Right.
yeah.
So that's one of the actions. And it's not just me, of course. Quite a few other people have been, we carpool
Of
down
course,
there.
yeah, sure.
So we also have an ongoing education thing. So one good friend of mine, Roland Sayer, and his friend Lois Robin put together an excellent movie called Climate Change Hits Home Santa Cruz. And this happened when this was triggered by Roland and I being at the farmer's market,
Right.
and we were collecting signatures for, I don't know what we were doing right now, I've forgotten. But the point was, we were at the farmer's market and talking to people about climate change.
Right.
And when Roland tried to talk to this one man, he goes, "Oh, don't talk to me about that." And Roland, sweet man that he is, actually pursued this gentleman and persuaded him to talk. And he explained that he was an apple grower, and the 2 previous winters have been disastrous because it wasn't cold enough,
Right.
and so the apples didn't grow properly. And so that gave Roland the idea of doing this movie. And he knew Lois Robin had done documentaries in the past, and so they got together. And I'm going to forget everything that's in it, but they talked to several different apple growers. They talked to ocean scientists. They talked to people doing things better ways. So there's somebody who's raising cattle, but he's raising them in a way that's good for the soil instead of bad for the soil.
Right.
Somebody at Cabrillo that's doing very soil replenishing gardening techniques. And I'm going to forget the other things, but there's about 7 different segments. They talked to Bruce Daniels, who's a very good local scientist.
Absolutely, but I
very
think
knowledgeable
Bruce is
about
on the
water.
Soquel Creek Water District
That's right.
Board, so Bruce is very well known, of course.
So they have a whole series,
And
and it's
respected,
put
yeah.
together in a way that I was a bit afraid it would be dull talking heads, but it's actually very well done.
No, and I think that's certainly relevant. As you know, apple is one of the major cash crops for Santa Cruz County, of course. Jeffrey, you have more to say about
I would like to mention a couple things
Of
about
course.
what Pauline is talking about. First, a little bit to describe how the Reework Labor Film Festival, how we organize it. We have a core group of people who've been with it year in and year out. And each year we sort of offer to other community groups to join with us and help promote some issue that somehow even tenuously relates to the labor theme.
Of course.
And so this year it's really nice that Pauline has joined us in this conversation, and you know, and her group working on issues related to this film. You know, that's a way that we, you know, we coordinate with other groups in the county. And then on the other point of why does this particular film, how can we bring it into a labor film festival? Well, obviously, you know, working people having a good air to breathe and clean water to drink, that's a working people's issue. It's just like
of course.
It's an issue that affects everybody.
Yeah, of course.
And the quality of life and the quality of at the workplace, it's all tied in. You know, we can't have decent workplaces if we don't have a decent environment. So so we're very thrilled to be able to feature this film and this topic.
Wonderful.
And bring it into the Labor Film Festival.
And certainly, we applaud the work of the Santa Cruz Climate Action Network, their commitment and energy. It's very infectious, you know, when you go to one of your events or marches, and I can recall this was a few months back when they marched, maybe it left from the Red Church, but it went over to San Lorenzo Park, and fantastic. You know, it's a wonderful opportunity for people to really become aware of what's going on, who are doing things that they can possibly connect with. And that is a lot of what we try to do here on Voice from the Village. It's nice to have you folks in. We talk about things, but this Reework, you know, May Day Labor Day Film Festival is an essential, you know, seminal event in Santa Cruz, and it speaks so much to our respect for labor and respect for all the things that are labor related. So it's a great opportunity for us to reach out to the community through people like yourself. So we appreciate you being here and being so articulate about explaining kind of what's going on to folks who have yet to see some of these films, and I'm going to be seeing some myself. Let's move on, and perhaps we can get back to talk about some climate change even a bit later. But let's talk about the movie Drone. Now, this is very exciting.
Which is going to be shown on Saturday, the 30th, at the Vets Hall.
There we go, and have that. And they're going to have Ray McGovern there, who is a retired CIA analyst and intelligence expert. And it was interesting. I'll tell you a little backstory. When Sherry Conable was organizing some around getting it over to the Vets Hall, and the Veterans for Peace were going to be hosting. They were reaching out to some folks for some contributions just to kind of help support and get Ray there. And I'm the vice chair of the local ACLU, so Sherry and Lee Brokaw, who's with the Veterans for Peace, said, well, would the ACLU be interested in contributing some money? I said, yeah, that sounds great, but we have to have the money that we contribute to everything have a civil liberties relationship somehow. So our chair says, well, this doesn't have a relationship. So it took me 5 minutes on our ACLU website to find exactly how, you know, drone is a civil liberties issue, and how this film speaks to that. So let's see this trailer, and then we'll come back and we will talk about it a bit.
Imagine killing more than 1,500 enemies in war without ever stepping foot on the battlefield.
We are at war with an organization that would kill as many Americans as they could if we did not stop them first.
The drones have changed everything. It's the defining weapon of the war on terror.
It's never been easier for an American president to carry out a killing operation at the ends of the earth.
We are safer because of our efforts. These strikes have saved lives.
I didn't really understand what it meant to kill at first. We sat in a box. We were the ultimate peeping Toms.
You never know who you're killing because you never actually see a face.
1,626 people were killed in the operations that I took part of.
How many of them do you think were innocent?
I'm the only one that really is vocal about it. It just blows my mind.
War is an unbelievably profitable business.
The military has invested in video games as recruiting tools.
How do we find our 18X pilots?
How do we identify these people early?
I had no idea what I was in for. I wasn't even 20 years old at that point.
Dozens of highly skilled al-Qaeda operatives have been taken off the battlefield.
The United States is violating one of the most fundamental rights of all, the right to life.
The truth is, the vast majority of people have no earthly idea what's happening here.
It is not justifiable killing unarmed, innocent civilians.
As a former RPA drone operator, I have concerns about how the drone community operates.
The U.S. has to explain what went wrong.
Drones have not caused a huge number of civilian casualties.
We've seen them make mistakes by the hundreds.
The rescuers would come in, and the CIA was coming back and bombing again.
I believe the United States of America must remain a standard bearer in the conduct of war.
It's just point and click.
So that is Drone, 7 o'clock at the Veterans Memorial Building. It's hosted by the VFW Post 5888, great folks, Veterans for Peace and People United for Peace. The theme, it says here, U.S. drone program, Dark Realities of Modern Warfare. So tell us about this drone movie.
Right. Well, I'm glad to say that the population is getting more information about the way we're conducting war nowadays with drones, and that we are getting some news about how these smart weapons are not all that smart, and they can't really distinguish, people at a wedding from quote, terrorist operators.
As if anybody could.
Right. Right. And the way the United States is acting in its conduct of war, it was mentioned in the clip that this is contrary to international law. Yeah. The United States is taking upon itself, prosecutor, judge, and jury, and deciding to annihilate people who are only suspected of possibly doing something bad in the future. And so that's the context of the whole drone, and there have been a number of films about drones and that kind of warfare. But the context that we're bringing it here to the Labor Film Festival is that these drone operators who are maybe sitting in a darkened room in Colorado Springs or somewhere in the mainland of the USA, and they're basically doing video games with these joysticks and killing people halfway around the world, actually, murdering human beings halfway around the world. And these people who are running the joysticks are workers. They're workers in the military
They are themselves
industry.
drones, basically.
Right, they're being right, and I suspect that if another iteration of artificial intelligence, they will get drones firing the drones themselves. But what is the consequence for a worker to be in this position where they're being the murderer? Actually, they're making the decisions about who to kill completely remotely, without them personally being in any danger or engaging at all.
And I think it's both laudable and notable that the Veterans for Peace and the Motto Post 5888 are the people who are hosting this version of warfare, and it's juxtaposed against them being actually veterans. I'm not a veteran myself, but I have great respect for people who have fought in wars, who have seen combat, and many of the folks from Post 5888 with whom I've worked in other areas are very much in support of peaceful solutions rather than warfare. And so it's entirely appropriate, I think, for them to show this at the Vets Hall. And people should go over there and support that and, talk to the vets they see over there and really get to know the Veterans for Peace and those folks. Harry Meserve, as you know, and Lee Brokaw and Bob Patton and people like that are terrific. And Pauline, you have a comment about, you must have a comment about about drones and the movie just generally?
And how war affects the environment.
And how war affects the environment. See, Jeffrey brought it right back to us there.
The drone thing is horrible. And I've heard that it's not just the people in these villages, although that's extremely, excruciatingly horrible, but these workers are ending up with a tremendous psychological stress after a while when it comes home to them what they've been doing. And they're young, impressionable people that are trained on video games like it's a game. And it's not a game. So that kind of thing makes me very angry. The military is one of the biggest users of fossil fuels. They are looking at a very aggressive rate into all kinds of alternatives, perhaps more so than any other branch of the government. But they use huge amounts of fossil fuel. They also are very bad about leaving. They have in the past been very careless with their oil barrels and their cleaning fluids and whatever. There's all kinds of sites that are contaminated. Not even to mention, we won't even get into nukes.
Okay, well, we'll save that for another show.
No, we won't talk about that. I think that's enough.
Yeah, but I think the impact on a worker is that there's going to be a very high order of post-traumatic stress syndrome that crops up with these people doing this kind of like as a video game, and then when they complete their term of service and they go home, they say, what'd you do? So, well, I was a drone operator, and my God, I was killing people from a distance, you know, and it was so impersonal. You know, how is that impacting me? And all of a sudden they have a lot of, you know, psychological problems built around that. Yeah. Well, that is going to be very interesting. And again, the Veterans for Peace and Motto Post 5888. Can't
let's
say enough about
let's say a little bit about Ray McGovern, who
of course,
who is
please,
coming to speak at this event. And Ray McGovern was worked for the CIA. For many years. He was an analyst and intelligence expert with the CIA, and then he retired, and he actually got some awards for the quality of his work, and now he's essentially a whistleblower. It's sort of his role in bringing to light some of the really awful things that have gone on in the intelligence community.
Well, again, Ray is in a very laudable position, in my opinion, that he's coming forth and he's speaking out, and speaking out as someone who has been involved in that, who knows about that, and that is, I think, the most important information we can get. People who have actually been involved in that, and say, this is what we're doing, this is what you should know about it, and this is why it's wrong. Certainly. We can go to another film, and this was When Voices Meet. It's going to be Sunday, May 1st at the Nick, 11 o'clock in the morning. And let's look at that trailer, and then we'll have a little chat about that.
Throughout the 20th century, South Africa was brutalized by systematic oppression and the apartheid government, which forced the separation of racial groups. They divided housing, workplaces, and schools. The white minority regime controlled the vast wealth of the country, oppressed the majority of its people, and forced them out of areas they declared for whites only. In 1990, Nelson Mandela was released from 27 years in prison. The apartheid government was still in power and was trying to convince the world that black Africans could not govern the country. Violent civil war raged in South Africa.
At that time, the racial situation was so bad. It was so bad. In the 60s and the 70s, height of apartheid, we were marked at that time as terrorists. So many people were dying at the time, and there were certain areas where one could not easily move in.
Can you imagine being restricted with your life? You are being told how to live your life. It brought a lot of people down. It killed, in fact, a lot of people.
South Africa was a prison for everybody because the government imposed their will and people were forced to live in separated areas. From the moment that I could really think for myself and see what was going on, it became an upbringing or a childhood of great pain and conflict.
Now, this is very exciting for me because I'm a big fan of protest and education through song. I just think it's such a great medium for that. It's so uplifting that I'm really looking forward to this. And you were saying, Jeffrey, that Sharon Katz, the filmmaker who we saw on the clip, is going to be here as one of the speakers.
Right. She's coming to present her film on May 1st, 11 a.m. at the Nickelodeon Theater. And she and her partner on the film, Marilyn Cohen, will both be here. Sharon is also a musician, and she was the person who organized the interracial youth choirs at that time, at this point of really tremendous upheaval in racial unrest in South Africa. And so there really were four racial groups. There were the whites, and there were the blacks, and then there were the Indians. There are a lot of people from India in South Africa.
Is that right?
And then there were people of mixed race, and they were separated in a separate group called the Coloreds. So, and the four different groups all living completely separated from each other, except that, the other groups would be allowed to come into the white areas to work, and then they'd have to go home. So, and they very completely separate lives, and so Sharon was able to get groups of young people, train them to sing, and then she was able to get them all together to sing together and they rented a train, and they went around the country by train and gave performances of this multiracial
And this is a
choir.
500-voice chorale? It must be extremely powerful to hear that. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So the film is the story of putting those choirs and that peace train movement around the country. And this is with young people, getting young people to intermingle across races. It had not, it was a brand new thing. Nobody had ever done that in South Africa before. And so, of course, all these people are adults now, and they've been really key. There were other movements like that at the same time, but they've been key in helping to build a more multiracial society.
And of course, the time frame, Nelson Mandela was released some 10 or 12 years ago or so, maybe longer, and that's when they organized the choir and the piece. It doesn't say here. I'm just trying to remember from my world history exactly how long ago it was that Nelson Mandela was. But it's a wonderful way to kind of reunite a country. And I can imagine. I'm really looking forward to this. You see a peace train. I love that idea. But a chorale of young people. The youth of a country. Actually going out and unifying the country like that is wonderful. The idea is wonderful.
Singing songs of peace and unity and freedom.
Oh, yeah.
Right, and South Africa has a rich history of freedom, using song as a way to maintain that idea of freedom. It's what got the ANC through that 27 years when Mandela was in jail. And so that's going to be the matinee showing, and then right afterwards, right across the street at the Calvary Episcopal Church, which we call the Red Church.
The Red Church, yeah.
Right. We're going to have a reception for the filmmakers and some snacks, and then we're going to have some performance of Sharon singing some of her songs and also leading a couple of local choirs in some of those same peace songs.
Well, I certainly urge people to attend not only the screening, but the recession and performance. The Red Church, I'm over there every Monday night. We have a meal that we do, and of course I was a good friend of Joel Miller, who has now moved on to do some other things, but the Calvary Episcopal is a wonderful community space, so people should come over there. And do you have any observations about this, Pauline?
Well, like I said, a couple of positive things about the Red Church.
Please do. I'm always
they've
interested to hear
sponsored
that.
a couple of things that we did. There was a November the 21st, we did a seminar.
That's right. I recall that
on
now.
December 12th, we had an action focus group, a follow-up to the big rally. So that's all very positive. I see another analogy because apartheid was brought down in large part because of divestment, because there was a divestment movement. People stopped investing in South African bonds, and the business people realized that they were going to go completely
Bottom
broke.
line, yeah.
And Bill McKibben, a year or two ago,
And
got
he's
the same idea for the climate movement.
Now,
So
Bill
there's
is
now
the
a big-
director of 350.org, or the founder, or he has some founder.
He's
Okay,
definitely
good. All
the
right.
founder.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
don't
Yeah.
think he would accept the title director because. But I'm not sure about that.
But
He's
please go
definitely the
ahead.
founder. So there is a divestment movement going on, and it's. I have a slideshow, but I've forgotten numbers. But there's huge numbers. I think of December, 3.4 trillion, if I remember correctly. Dollars had already been divested away from fossil fuel stocks. The University of California is already divested from coal, but not from oil and natural gas yet. Many huge institutions, Stanford University. I'm not going to. I'd have to have a sheet in
Of
front
course,
of
no,
me
but
to remember
just
them all.
as an overview, it's
But
interesting to know.
It's one of these things that's growing rapidly. So at the same time that the climate is sort of going wrong rapidly, some of these movements against it are also growing very rapidly, and divestment is one of them, inspired by the anti-apartheid movement.
It's interesting how human rights and labor and climate and all these things kind of merge together in terms of how we live our lives and how we see the world and how we react and live in the world. We have some extra time here. Jeffrey, you have more to say about some films coming up, since we really want people to know?
I did just want to give a word of thanks to our sponsors of the Reework Labor Film Festival.
Absolutely, of course.
All of the events are by voluntary donation at the door. So, there's no barrier, no financial barrier for people to come and see these wonderful shows. Of course, we are happy to accept contributions, but there are some stalwart contributors.
Well, please feel free to mention them.
Including the Nickelodeon Theater and the City of Santa Cruz, which helps make the Del Mar Theater available to us.
Which is where we'll be having the Josh Fox film, so we appreciate that to the extent that the City of Santa Cruz has contributed.
Right. Community Printers contributes, donates part of the printing of our fabulous program.
Look for the union label.
Yes, absolutely. And then there are, more than a dozen labor unions that contribute regularly. The teachers union, several branches of the teachers union, the nurses union, the Teamsters union, food and commercial workers union, and then also the Monterey Bay Central Labor Council, which is essentially the union of all the unions.
Yeah.
And so it's because of the support from labor and in-kind contributions from local businesses and community members. It's quite a broad coalition that comes together to financially support this operation.
It's not only a community event, it's a community building event. And I think that's the wonderful part about it. You have more that you'd like to say about the people who have helped make this happen?
I think that's...
Well, there's a couple of films that we did not have trailers for. Maybe you can give us kind of a bird's eye view of those. There's a Saturday. Well, let's start at the top here. This is the show we have here tonight will air on the Tuesday, so perhaps we'll be able to see A Living Wage. Can you tell us something about that, which looks like that's going to be shown at the Calvary Episcopal Red Church?
Right.
Limpiadores, perhaps.
Yeah,
Could you give us a little synopsis of those?
Yeah, that show is about economic justice, and the first film, Second Chances, is a local film about the re-entry of people who've been incarcerated back into the community, and it interviews a number of prisoners and former prisoners in the county jail, and also interviews people working in the Sheriff's Department, including Sheriff Jim Hart.
I think that's particularly relevant with all the discussion now about Prop 47 and people re-entering their workplace, and a lot of the things that have happened in terms of restorative justice and the models that we're trying to create. So wonderful. I think that would be very elucidating for people.
Right. Living Wage is a film about fast food workers, and it follows the lives of a couple of fast food workers in the kind of low wage positions they were in through the struggle for the fight for 15. And of course now in California, with the governor's and the cooperation between the governor and the legislature, they did pass a $15 an hour wage, which of course is not going to take effect for a few years, fully in effect. But it happened because of the struggles nationwide, like this fight for 15.
And I think it's notable for people to understand that there is a difference between the hourly wage and the living wage. And certainly the disparity of that is where people are marginalized, I think.
In this town, it's figured that living wage is a wage to allow you to actually live in Santa Cruz is probably in the 20s.
Yeah, I think it's not quite that much, but the point is well taken. It's much more than what the minimum wage would be, even if it were raised to $15 an hour, which is a wonderful effort, but we need to do more of that. Limpiadores?
Yeah, we are really an international film festival. This is one of the films that was submitted from a filmmaker in Great Britain. It's about immigrant workers in London who, it's just interesting to see parallels between how workers are treated there and here. It's the immigrant workers cleaning the rooms and the offices in the prestigious universities in London, and how they're basically invisible workers in that society.
Wonderful. We have a couple of minutes left. How about just a word?
Just I'd like to say,
please, no, absolutely.
Kind of a theme. I mean, it's very easy. We could show a whole week of films about how awful working conditions are in sweatshops around the world and get everybody really depressed. Even How to Let Go of the World, the first half of the movie is pretty depressing about how the world's falling apart. But what we like to show is, faced with these conditions, how the spirit of the average people, working people, can, through united action, come together and create some change, some positive change out of the situations that they're in.
Very well said. And as we go out, I want everybody to do whatever they can, take some time, look at these films, and consider how important labor is to us, locally, regionally, statewide, nationally. And just take a moment maybe to ponder that, and then take in one or two or three or several of these shows. It's the Reework 2016 May Day Labor Film Festival. We're going to get the name all right and all together. Thank you, Jeffrey Smedberg, for being here. Pauline Seals, a delight to have you here. We'll have you back. Maybe we'll do a climate show, and just be you and I, and we'll talk climate for an hour, and maybe talk a little bit more about the Santa Cruz Climate Action Network. Thank you again for tuning in to this first inaugural program here in our new studios, The Voice from the Village. This show, again, is devoted and dedicated to our good friend Louis LaFortune, who we miss dearly and who will always be a member of the Voices family. So for Louis, for myself, for everybody behind the camera, John Maurer, Gail Williamson, Ken Nobler, Keith Gudger, Brian Schulman, all the folks who really make this magic happen. Thank you, and I'm Steve Pleich. We'll see you next time on Voices from the Village.